Well, bumfuzzle my beanpole and call me Bertram. It's the Krusty Fox, back once more for another episode of And Just Like Crap, a cranky little review and recap of Sex and the City revival series And Just Like That. This week we are reheating the year 2001's nachos, so pop some plastic sheets over any soft furnishings, just in case, and let's get into it. Consider me truly surprised for a change because they actually went there. Carrie and Aidan broke up for a record third time. Surprise! But first, let's take a moment to appreciate how chronically incapable Carrie is of not living her life as literally as possible. She's writing a novel set in the 1800s, so what does she do? Starts dressing like she's on her way to the nearest Ren fair. I also want to say up top a huge well done to the writers of the last couple of seasons for taking Aidan Shaw from the only decent man Carrie ever dated to arguably one of the worst. It's not good, per se, but it is impressive. Like doing a high kick but breaking your own nose. Aidan spends this episode, like he spent the last, very much back on his early 2000s bullshit. And by that, I mean stalking around Carrie's life, sniffing suspiciously at any man who comes within 10 feet of her, all the while threatening to cock his leg and release a jet stream of territorial wang water. But we'll get to the specifics of what Aidan actually does in a bit. You should be aware that this episode caused me deep discomfort because it made me violently Team Carrie, as it was designed to. Starting with, we're later led to believe, Aidan basically stalking basement-dwelling neighbour Duncan to, I dunno, scope him out? Warn him off? Hit the show's hypocrite high score? Unclear. Duncan, for what it's worth, seems entirely unbothered by all of this. You could read that as stereotypical English stoicism. But if I were a renowned writer, I don't imagine I would feel particularly threatened by the judgment of the hillbilly carpenter with his Fruit of the Loom t-shirt and stupid f***ing questions. Carrie's approach to the issue is not to approach it, partially because she knows full well the conversation it will lead to, and partially because, as mentioned up top, we're basically redoing Sex and the City Season 4 with some flimsy garnish sprinkled around it. In other words, Carrie's allowing Aidan to act out. Why? Because, on some level, she still feels like he's entitled to, due to the historical crimes committed by her Whisker Biscuit. Everything comes to a head at a fateful lunch-based showdown where Aidan admits that he still has trust issues with Carrie, and she admits that she's given all she has to give to their relationship. And if it isn't enough, he can, and I'm paraphrasing, f*** right off. Which he does. Exit stage right, Aidan Shaw. And with that, we are finally free of the only legacy boyfriend I can think of that they'd seriously try to reintroduce for Carrie. And the landing strip is now, perhaps literally, clear for Duncan to land. Unless, of course, they decide to set the internet on fire and bring Burger back. It would do great things for the ratings, and terrible things for my cardiovascular health. This week in Who Gives a Shit news? Everybody else, given how much time is devoted to Carrie and Aidan's conflama. Seema finally gives in and tries Adam's armpit crystals instead of her regular deodorant, which leads to a sweaty meeting with a potential client, at which she becomes the woman from the last episode she judged for publicly masking her musk. Ask yourself this. Would you rather see somebody's underarms for 5 seconds or smell their trench stench for 5 hours? Exactly. Remember Carrie's Tavern Wench cosplay? Well, it turns out that Duncan also picks up habits from his works in progress. In this case, smoking a pipe, because half of Thatcher's cabinet did. And given what we know about the top secret deviancy of many politicians, let's hope he drew the line there. Andy Cohen reprises his Sex and the City Season 6 role as a shoe department assistant, whose name, we finally learn, is David. It would have been funnier just to call him Andy, right? Like he goes straight from a shift at Macy's to watch what happens live. Our count it, one scene with Charlotte and Harry this week can be summarised thus. He's no longer peeing through a tube, and she can't stop falling over. I did like that on Harry's nightstand there's a copy of Carrie's loved and lost book. Maybe he's checking to see how many times she mined his private life for content, with all the sinister glee of a family YouTuber with a chronically ill child. Herbert's on a diet, which is not going well. In line with this show's usual approach to body positivity, expect him to be walking nude through the background next episode, crying with a nutty buddy hanging out of his mouth, and the word pig scrawled across his stomach in Cheese Whiz. Miranda finally admits to girlfriend Joy that she's an alcoholic, and had to send her bottle of gin to the Upside Down to avoid a relapse. It does look for a second like Joy's about to whip off her mask and reveal a huge asshole underneath, but thankfully it ends up being a sweet moment of vulnerability between the two. Expect it not to last. And Anthony has a very enjoyable ageist showdown with mother-in-law Gia, full of phony Italian accents and table-sweeping outbursts. On her way out, Gia tells son Giuseppe that she's cutting him off, which at least explains how a guy peddling poems for $1 at Barnes & Noble survived more than a week in Manhattan without having to sell his belongings, organs, and ass. I do think it's worth taking inventory of how many times in this episode alone, and just like that, hammers a nail into the coffin of Carrie and Aiden's relationship. It's a comprehensive piece of work. I would say it should be studied, but the education system of most countries is bad enough already without adding this to it. First, there's the shitty little inquiry about Duncan's pipe. Not what it sounds like. But frankly, given how hard the writers went on Aiden's awfulness, I'm kind of surprised he didn't just flop his hog out onto the patio furniture and challenge him to a duel. Asking why someone smokes a pipe isn't the issue here. It's the weirdly aggressive tone and his refusal to acknowledge the fact that Carrie's gurning from embarrassment so much that she's about to swallow her own chin. There's also his attempt to get Carrie to back him up on the fact that having kids with his ex, Kathy Aiden's wife, was the best thing they ever did together. I mean, considering the most recent thing they did together was I'd say that does force his rancid brood somewhat further up the list, but we'll come back to that. Then there's the fact that he's in close enough proximity to interrogate Duncan in the first place. Carrie set a boundary, finally proving that she at least knows what one is, and Aiden drove his truck right through it, licking his hand all the while. Next, there's his cringeworthy intrusion on one of Carrie and Duncan's writing sessions to pathetically insist on cooking them steaks. Now, I get this behaviour. I have been on both sides of this behaviour. But I can tell you from experience that, if healthy communication isn't fixing your relationship, peppercorn sauce probably isn't going to do it either. Coming in hot is another case of the show going Sex and the City redux, when Aiden bluntly tells Carrie to go and have a shower because she smells of Duncan's pipe. Again, very much not what it sounds like. Aside from this being bad form generally though, is Aiden for real? He lives on a farm with 2 teenage boys. Any environment that doesn't stink of chicken shit, BO, and the faint but unmistakable bouquet of cum should be like a snout full of fresh laundry to him. Then of course we come to the hypocritical core of the thing. Aiden's accidental admission that he still doesn't trust Carrie around other men. How are you gonna sit there smugly spouting off about not trusting a partner you literally just cheated on? Try some introspection, my dude. Or jamming your strumpet thumper into a meat grinder. Either works for me. And I think at this point we're forced to acknowledge something. This development retcons Aiden. What was previously sold as understandable doubt is now exposed as gross, systemic insecurity that goes way beyond what Carrie caused. There is nothing Carrie can do, as she rightfully points out, to bring him round. Aiden Shaw, it turns out, was always this guy, and it was only covered up by Carrie proving him right 20 years ago. Which, as predicted, effectively lets Carrie off the hook for everything she did to him in Sex and the City. Why it took the equivalent of a full season to get there is anybody's guess. This could have been a 3-episode arc. Or an email, frankly. This video's question is, what's the most unreasonable thing a partner has ever asked you to do? Either before, after, or on your 3rd try at a relationship. Let me know in the comments below and the best will message us you up in the next video. Either way, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, if you can't be good, be crusty.